Hey, everybody. Whoa. The Philadelphia Eagles lost to the Cardinals 35-31. But I'm still reeling about this, but he's not. The Ravens hung up 56 points on the Dolphins. 56 points. You're watching this. You're with Zennie62. You ought to be in here. You got the link. Hey, what? Bill, you're not Bill Odamas, okay?
No. But I told everybody, right, that so I picked them to beat the 49ers. And the 49ers, I thought, were the second best team in the NFL. The 49ers are a team I see as a Super Bowl team. And they handled them pretty solidly. The Dolphins are not that good. The Dolphins, once again, look at who the Dolphins have beaten. They only have one win against a team that has a winning record. Everyone else that they've faced a winning record, they've lost to.
How do you explain the Cowboys, though?
How do I explain what about the Cowboys? That's the one.
They beat
them. That's the one.
So you're just saying it's the exception that proves the rule, then?
I'm saying the Cowboys aren't as good as people think either. Also, the Cowboys are also. They struggled mightily with the Lions, and frankly, the Lions should have won that game. The Lions kicked that earlier field goal. They don't have to worry about going for two later, and they win that game. So, and that was a blown call. So they still should have won. The Lions should have won that game twice. So I'm not sold on the Cowboys, and I've said that literally all season long. So no, the Cowboys aren't that good either. The Dolphins and Cowboys are not that good.
And explain the Saints just basically almost but almost steamrolling until they woke up the Buccaneers. Was it a case of, because I didn't see the game, the Buccaneers having a sucky game plan? Probably.
I think it was two things. New Orleans defense played, I think, its best complete game so far this year. They've looked good against bad teams. This is not a great team, but it's a solid team. It's a decent team.
In the middle.
Right, in the middle. And they had a really good game plan. They did a good job of keeping Alvin Kamara, who in the past, as you know, has gone all the way off on them, right?
Yeah.
Kamara, as I'm sure you know all too well, Kamara has had some of his best career games racing them, and he did not. So, Kamara had an okay game, but he's done well against Buccaneers in the past. They did two things. They kept that sort of special connection between Mike Evans and Tampa Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
He also his receivers let him down. Rashad White had busted a long run and fumbled, and then there was a Trey Palmer, I think 62-yard reception that ended in a fumble.
Yep.
So they had two big plays that ended in fumbles that probably should have at least ended in field goals and not touchdowns. So those things combined with a very nice defensive effort and a solid all-around offensive effort from New Orleans is what it took. And those are both good but not great teams.
Hey,
so in teams,
if I may, Baker Mayfield had 22 of 33 for 309 yards.
Yeah.
9.4 yard average.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of him this year. Like, I don't know how much of him you've watched, but this is what he does.
Not much. We don't get, because of where we are, we get the Falcons and not the Bucks. And I don't have the Sunday ticket thing because I don't like the pricing. I don't want to get off on that, but
I got you. I got you. Well, here's what I'll say. He was my odds-on guy. Even preseason, I said he's going to win comeback player of the year. I thought he'd be this year's Geno Smith. What I didn't foresee was a 38, now 30, almost 39, I think in a day or two, 39-year-old Joe Flacco, 38 going on 39-year-old Joe Flacco, coming up off the couch and leading a team to the playoffs. But
with
the guy
on the couch, no less.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, he was handing on the 31st of October. He was literally handing out candy to trick-or-treaters, right? He was at home playing with his kids. So, shout out to Joe Flacco for having this late renaissance. But I preseason picked Baker, Reagan, Mayfield to win comeback player of the year. I'm not at all surprised by what he's doing. He's in the best situation of his career professionally, the best coaching he's received, and the best talent around him of his career. So it doesn't surprise me.
The team, look at this. I can say this straight out. The Bucks hung up 90 more yards in total offense than the Saints in the loss, which tells me that tells you all you need to know about there being a problem with that game plan. But let's come back to the Eagles now.
Yep.
In losing to the Cardinals. Now, I'm not surprised at the outcome because, I've said it all year long. I felt the Cardinals were on a better path than they were when Cliff Kingsbury was coaching and they were running that undisciplined version of the air raid offense. Know what I said? Version. Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at that contest, you start crunching the numbers for that one. What you come out with is Hurts with 16 of 27 for just 167 yards, 3 touchdowns, but 1 interception. Kyler Murray, wow. 25, 31, 232 yards, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. Arguably the better quarterback. And
he opened up shaky, right? The pick 6 to Sidney Brown.
Yes.
And they managed to overcome it for a couple of reasons. One is breakdowns on defense. Like, that's the main thing, is that the Eagles could have pretty much cruised, I won't say easily, but would have won that game if their defense had given the effort we're used to seeing. They looked really good early on, and then a combination of not really understanding the strengths of the team they were facing, right? It looked like they hadn't been properly prepared.
Right.
Guys like Elijah.
I was going to say just bad game plan, but
guys like here's a good example. Elijah Higgins, right? Elijah Higgins was a guy that comes out of college, is very underrated, but he's a big body guy who moves better than you think. And he's one of those guys that was sort of that tight end wide receiver tweener coming out, right? People weren't sure what to make of him, but he has really good ball tracking. He has big, strong hands. He's a difficult guy to cover because of his size. And whether you think he's a quote-unquote real tight end or not, wherever you align him, you've got to cover him with somebody who, one, has the ability to get to the catch point because he's going to go up there. And, I mean, it's not a 50-50 ball with his size. It's a 75-25 or 80-20 ball. Most of the guys who are covering him are maybe 6'1". So I don't think they really understood what they were facing there. Michael Wilson is an emerging, not star exactly, but he's going to be a really nice piece. And Higgins, despite his size, ran 4.54. So you look at his size.
We have to talk about James Conner, too.
James Conner's always in the state of Pennsylvania. Look at his career every time he shows up in the state of Pennsylvania.
When he went in the state of going off, he was this game 26 carries for 128 yards, 4.9 yard average, a touchdown. Longest game was 22 yards. Those are numbers you want to take anywhere. I mean,
but I'm saying study his career. Like when he plays in Pittsburgh, when he played for Pittsburgh, but when he plays against Pittsburgh, look at his numbers. Anytime he plays in his home state, something about that, he just goes off. His career numbers in his home state.
Well, you said it. His home state, right? There you go.
Right. If you were to do that every week, he'd be headed to the Hall of Fame. But this team is starting to coalesce, starting to come together. They're getting better. The arrow is pointed very firmly up, and the arrow on the Eagles, quite frankly, is pointing down. So you're looking at
let's go there. What is going on with the Eagles where their arrow is pointing down at the wrong time?
It's a combination of things. Good old-fashioned fatigue. It is a long season. They have depth, some of which is depleted just due to injury because at this point in the season, more and more guys are getting nicked. But the guys that they have coming in rotation, the thought was that they have no drop-off. Jordan Davis is just as good as Fletcher Cox. Well, no, he's not. Fletcher Cox is clearly a better football player. There's a drop-off when he comes off the field, even though at his age, the age that he is. So this is a team that the heart of their team, despite everything else to do, is running the ball and playing defense. When they don't establish the run and they don't play great defense, they lose. Period. Full stop. I love Arthur Brown Jr. I love Skinny Batman, a.k.a. the Slim Reaper, Devontae Smith. I love those guys. But those guys are at the heart of how they win. The heart of how they win, the heart of how they win is pounding you in the run game and playing great defense.
Hey, we got the Raiders. Man, they went in and they stunk up the place and then almost came back to at least tie.
Yep.
But didn't. All right. So
the Colts are just a better team at this point. But the gap is narrowing.
Why?
Well, I mean, part of it is just roster, right? The Raiders roster still isn't a good roster. They've got some stuff they got to fix. Offensive line is not even a fair fight, right? The Colts offensive line is a couple of rungs above the Raiders offensive line. Running back talent. No offense to any of the running backs that the Raiders have, but Jonathan Taylor his talent is nuts. a guy that size who runs in the 4.3s, that's once in a lifetime.
Yeah, he had
kind of guy.
21 carries for 96 yards, but Zamir White had 20 carries for 71 yards. And
Zamir White is a solid running back, but he does. There's a reason one guy's an undrafted and one guy's a second rounder, right? And who should have been a first rounder. And I don't believe in first round running backs normally, but Jonathan Taylor is the exception, as you said, that proves the rule. Guys like him don't come around very often. They have a better offensive line. They have a better running back. They have better wide receivers. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr. would be not just wide receiver 1, but Josh Downs would probably be wide receiver 1 if you drop him on the Raiders, right? They just have a gap there talent wise.
But I don't think they are so bad.
I didn't say bad. There's not as good. Like one team's better.
Well, I mean, you know me. I believe scheme can overcome those differences. So I'm more interested in what was done that led to this outcome. And the one thing I focus on is that the Raiders were not able to stop the Colts rush effectively. 29 carries for the team, 134 yards, but get this, a 4.6 yard average, all right? Which means basically you're looking at picking up a first down just running the ball. Right. By contrast, the Raiders have 3.4 yards to rush. And that's the standard you want to be in as a rush defense to say, hey, you're doing your job, right?
Yep.
And so we have two things here. We've got the Raiders rush defense not doing its job and the Colts rush defense doing theirs. But see, I'm wondering now if the Raiders tried to do that stubborn thing that they do, like going up the middle a lot, which is not something you want to do against the Colts. I'd love to see the tape of that or the video of that.
Here's what I would say. Zamir White is a guy who that's all he can do, basically, right? Zamir White doesn't have enough quickness against a good NFL defense to get to the corner. So trying to run him outside is not his strength. His nickname was Zeus, right? He was this real powerful kid in high school, gets to Georgia, can never stay healthy, right? He's the third back in a 3-back rotation, at least in part because he's always hurt. But he's a big, powerful guy, very strong, but he's not fast and he doesn't have a lot of wiggle. So trying to get him to the edge, you want his shoulders pointed towards the defense, not perpendicular to the defense. That's not Zamir White's strength, first of all. So I can see why they would be. They tried to get him a few times to the edge, but it's just not what he's good at. And sometimes the limitations of your players, I know what you love to do schematically, but sometimes players just aren't capable of doing it. People are going to shoot through the gap and tackle him in the backfield when he's running laterally, Zennie. He's just not quick.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's not his thing.
Right.
They don't have a lot of speed, frankly. So Abdullah, right, is a 4.6 guy. Jacobs runs in the 4.6s. Zamir White is darn near 4.7. So between your three main running backs, it's 4.64, 4.66, and 4.69. So all three of those guys amongst starting running backs are in like the bottom 17, 18 percentile, right? None of those guys are fast. So you want to get downhill because that's their strength. They're powerful. They're not big. None of them are, White's the biggest, but none of them are huge, right? They're all in that 205 to about 219, 218 range. So you're talking about medium to slightly above medium-sized backs whose main thing is contact balance and power.
Yep.
So that doesn't equal outside runs, right? That equals hammering. And when they've had success in the run game, it's always been that.
Yeah, that hammer. Now, going from that to this other debacle of a contest that's in our face, we are looking at. Did you see the Chicago Bears beat the crap out of the Falcons?
So here's two things. Do you want to see the Falcons' record in snow games? It's not pretty, Zennie. I think
it was bad, but I haven't seen the number.
Oh, it's terrible. I think
how bad is it?
I think in the last 15 years they've won one game where it's below, it's 33 degrees or below, something like that.
That's bad.
Snow basically equals death for them. So they're not they don't play well outdoors late in the season. That's been them. Even when they had Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, they struggled. And they don't have Matt Ryan or Julio Jones in case you hadn't kept up. So
I kind of noticed that,
So this version of the team,
it was hard not to miss that one, man.
Yeah. So this version of the team is struggling because they need things to go almost perfectly for them to do well. Things didn't go perfectly for them. The Bears have one of the better defenses in the NFL, especially lately, right? To the last month or so, they've gone from being a sort of middle of the pack defense to one of the top 4 or 5 defenses. And it's not all Montez Sweat, but Montez Sweat has been a big help.
So basically, that was a great acquisition for them.
It was a fantastic acquisition. Yes.
Now we come to going back over the ESPN recap here. By the way, folks, Pittsburgh 7, Seattle nothing, Cincinnati 3, Kansas City nothing. Whoa, and
I'm not worried about that one too much yet, but yeah.
And moving along in our thing, Houston whomped the Titans. That's no other way to put it, folks. 26-3. Will Levis got kicked out of the game. Well, not in the common sense, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He did.
NFL playoffs.
I was born ready.
Dramatic entrances.
He did in the Bayou brawl sense.
Right. He got hurt. Frankly, the team looked better with Tannehill out there anyway, but that's another team that is in transition, right? They have a few good older players like Jeffrey Simmons, like Tannehill, like Derrick Henry, and they're going to have to move on from those guys anyway. And Nuke Hopkins, that was a weird one to me because they're about to have a youth movement. I don't think Hopkins is going to stick around for the reboot of that franchise. So he may be a guy who's maybe a draft day trade guy or something. A team that maybe like the Chiefs who are looking for a veteran receiver making a move for Mr. DeAndre Nuke Hopkins. But they're going to have to get
Henry. He only posted 3.5 yards a carry and a total of 42 yards on the 12 rushes.
Well, but it's the same thing that's always been the story on him. If you get to him early, right? He's a guy that because of his height and his running style, it takes guys like Barry Sanders, right? Boom, they go full speed.
Right.
He takes a while to build up. If you shoot in there, you get in and around his feet and legs early on, he can't get up to speed. He's not a guy that makes people miss. It's not really his game. So think about it this way. If I push a refrigerator up a hill, before it starts rolling downward, it's not hard to stop the refrigerator, right? Anytime I push back against that refrigerator before it gets to the crest of the hill, very easy to stop, right? I can push it backwards even. It rolls down the hill the other way.
Yep.
Now, once it starts rolling down the hill, it's very difficult to stop. That's Derrick Henry. He is that refrigerator rolling down a hill. If you get to him before he gets to the crest of the hill, he's not that hard to stop, Zennie, and that's what they did. They were getting to him early, and he couldn't get up to speed.
That's true. So we come to now C.J. Stroud, on the other hand. Get this.
Oh, yeah, he's special.
Wow. Oh, hey, Bobby Slovic, offensive coordinator. I love what he's done in designing that system and those great routes. Sometimes they come in and turn out. Sometimes they go deep. They have a nice variety of routes, difficult to predict, and they splits them out like. I love it. I love the design of it. I loved it in preseason. I love it more now because they're using it. They're not turning away from it.
And when they get Tank Dell back next year, they're going to be. I mean, he was on his way to being a possible Rookie of the Year contender on offense, and losing him slowed him up a little bit. But they were able to sort of piece it together. But when they have all those pieces, and I think they're going to draft well again. They have a really smart room of evaluators. They're going to, like I said, we're going to see, I think, a passing of I guess we're already witnessing a passing of the torch, I believe. I think that the Jaguars are going to be in some trouble.
Yeah. How's this for defense? As a team, the Tennessee rushing game averaged a measly. I mean, you thought, like, hey, the Raiders at 3.4 was not up to snuff.
No.
Get this, 2.5 yards rushing.
Yeah, and that's the whole
53 yards.
Yep. Ooh. So that's the whole thing. When a team doesn't scare you at all with what they can do in the passing game, now that safety's taking a step down and then another step down. Everybody's playing pretty soon within 11 yards of the line of scrimmage. And you're shooting gaps. You're saying, I don't believe you when you go to play action. I don't believe you. I don't believe you're going to do anything but try to run this ball. So you're just shooting downhill. And until they beat you big time over the top, you have no reason to stop. They don't have part of it's talent, right? Nuke Hopkins is a good receiver, but he's not a deep threat. Treylon Burks is a talented kid, but he's not a great route runner. He doesn't have fantastic ball tracking. They still haven't replaced Arthur Brown Jr. since he went to Philadelphia. So that's a guy that they need to find that guy in this upcoming draft, and that maybe Xavier Liggett, maybe Malik Neighbors, maybe we'll see. But they need to find a true number one receiver in this draft class coming up. They need to continue to rebuild that offensive line that is in flux, and their once proud defensive line, which is now dwindled down to some decent players and one really great player that people sort of sleep on in Jeffrey Simmons because he's stuck in the situation he's in. And once again, that's another guy that could be traded. I mean, I think there'll be teams, contenders or teams that are closer to contending that may want him, and he may want to maybe play in a different situation, because I think that it's going to get worse before it gets better for Tennessee. I think they're a year or two away from being back to build back and contend.
So now here's the question: what is your game that you're looking at right now? And what of all the games is the one that really caught you by surprise? Because I know the one that didn't.
Yeah, well, okay. So the surprise to me was the Eagles game, and then Buffalo had more trouble than I was expecting. Also, they did eventually win, and they clearly were the better team, but they didn't cleanly. It wasn't like a clean dispatching. It wasn't like watching a matador at the end of a bullfight, just sort of go in there. No, it was not clean. It was messy. I mean, Josh Allen was, I think, 15 of 30 for like 167 or something yards. And, I think he didn't have a single passing touchdown by 2 rushing touchdowns. And, I mean, a win's a win, but they did not look like a team that terrifies you, rolling into the playoffs. They're going to make it. They're going to get in there. I mean, they still have a shot even to win the AFC East, but they're not a juggernaut, right? And the Dolphins, as I said, I've been saying all season, are not as good as people think. So when Aaron Charles Rodgers comes back next year, once again, if they continue to build around him, if he comes back healthy next year, they could be right back in the mix, because the Jets certainly have a lot of pieces on defense that you like. And they have some good young wide receivers. They have a terrific young running back in Breece Hall, if he can stay healthy, which has been a big if so far in his career. They need to fix their Mekhi Becton problem. That's where I would start, is that offensive line. That offensive line is why one of the reasons Aaron Charles Rodgers couldn't, finish the season. They have an older guy coming off an injury. They've got to fix that offensive line. But if they do, they will be right back in the mix, contending with Buffalo and contending with Miami.
Now, where do you place? Because, first of all, congratulations. The Baltimore Ravens have clinched.
Yep.
Because they beat the Dolphins. They clinched the NFC North Division title.
Yep.
And they also clinched the number one seed. They have lone first round bye and home field advantage.
Yep.
They've sealed that.
And
now,
deservedly so, yes.
Right. Now, the score, the Buffalo New England score, we need to take a look at real quick. And let me go back to my ESPN panel that I had open. I don't know why I was so stupid and closed it. That was an accident.
Okay.
But hey, stuff happens. Let me go back here and press that button. And then go back here and go over and look and scroll over. We have.
In case you're wondering, the Chiefs are now leading in the. I think the Chiefs are going to handle the. I don't want to say it'll be easy, but I think that's about a 10-point, 7 to 10-point win for them.
All right, so we have New England. Wow, Buffalo 27, New England 21 final.
Yep.
Now, what that translates to is that the Buffalo Bills have clinched a playoff berth. Congratulations.
They're in the playoffs. Yep.
All these scenarios, and there are 14 of them the NFL provided this today, actually on the 26th of last month, or this month rather. All are now done. The Bills are in. Okay.
Yes.
Cleveland, as you know, is in.
Yep. Once again, shout out to Joe Flacco. Yep.
Right. Now, here's the thing. Jacksonville would clinch a playoff berth if they won, which they did not.
No.
Indy did not lose. And Houston did not lose. So Jacksonville is.
Yep.
Now, Kansas City will clinch a playoff berth and the division title.
Yep.
If they win. But guess what? They don't have to worry about it because the Raiders lost.
Correct.
Excuse me. Dang, boy, that's a killer. Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, well, the Raiders are still a year away. They're a year away, and that I mean, when you look at where they were when the season began, they've already come like a year's worth. Like they've made so much progress. This team was in utter disarray earlier. I mean, they looked awful, and now they are still inconsistent. They still got problems, but are they the team they were the first few weeks of the season was a team that was probably going to be picking fourth, right? They were going to maybe win 5 games.
AP? Does Mark Davis hire AP as coach?
Well, I mean, if he doesn't, I'd like to hear why not. They're playing so much harder than they were. You can see a level of trust and commitment. You see the players communicating better. You see them. You see their excitement about showing up to work. I mean, this is a job. Like we forget sometimes because it is a game or a sport that this is a job. Like when you are not excited about your job, no matter what your job is, it's harder to do your job well. They are clearly more excited about going to work now than they were before. Part of it is
May I show you why I think, and I hope this doesn't come to pass. I really hope he's grown out of this. But I'm going to show you why I think AP may not get the job. It's right here. You see that? Mark Davis hates being upstage, hence the behavior toward AP. He's known for this, Bill. He is known for disliking somebody else getting, you could be at the dinner table and maybe you're leading the conversation. You know what you're talking about. You're trolling on and on. The attention is off Mark. Mm-hmm. It is widely known that Mark will get annoyed. And a number of people have told me this is going on for a long, long time. Okay? A long time. I remember when I was at the Raiders sponsor party that was in Las Vegas for CES in 2019, and Mark Davis was up there. There's a video on it here at Zennie62. I'm not going to show it because that's not our focus right now, but Jerry Jones was, as he's wont to do, trotting on, and he's a great salesman. He loves the crowd.
Right, of course.
Mark was getting visibly upset over Jerry chortling on. And I remember standing in the crowd and I'm going like as if to say to Mark, and I'm looking at him, I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't blow it. You know, because Jerry is what Jerry's trying to do is sell sponsorships for him, for Davis. Mm-hmm. And he's doing a great job.
Yep.
But Mark so has to have the spotlight that he will literally mortgage his immediate good fortune future just for an ego issue. And this is something that is anybody who's known Mark Davis for a long, long time. I don't know him very well, but I know him well enough. But I know people who know him far better than I do, and in ways that I will never know him, if you know what I mean. All right. Who will tell you, as they've told me, he has that problem.
Sure. Yeah. But Billy Joel wrote a whole song about it. Yeah.
And here comes AP, who, hey, really effective, yes, and everything else. But Mark sees it as giving this talented young black man a chance. But, don't come in and, upstage me and tell me what I have to do. Just win out the string, be quiet, and then do it. Or look at how you want another example? How Mark treated Hugh Jackson. Okay? Hugh Jackson felt that he should have been the Raiders coach. He got in front of the press and said that he should be the guy rather than interim. Oh, no. And then he went 8-8. And the word was, how dare he do that? So guess what? They canned him. Mm-hmm. Yep. And you know who was behind that was Reggie McKenzie. And I said to Reggie McKenzie, I love Reggie, but I said, hey, look, two prominent African-American men. Why couldn't you support each other? And he said, sometimes there are people you just don't like. All right.
Yeah. That's what you so my point rubbed many people the wrong way, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Why is that though?
Well, Have you been around him? Well, he was at Cal,
Yeah.
right, for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay.
No, I met him officially through Mike Silver at the Lee Steinberg Super Bowl party that was in Phoenix in 2000. I want to say 2018 for the Super Bowl there, around there. And yeah, fine. Except that, okay, I'll just say this. All right, maybe it's one of those things that some people do. I don't like it when somebody pats me on the butt. Okay, I am not down with that. All right. Right? I was like, ugh. And I didn't make a big deal of it because I knew I was going elsewhere. But it just kind of it jarred me. Let me put it that way. All right.
Right. Well,
But other than that, he was fine. Cool.
I don't think he's a bad person, but he definitely can rub certain people the wrong way, and he's got a little bit of alpha. I mean, what you find a lot of head football coaches, but he's got some of that sort of I have to be sort of up here above you kind of stuff sometimes. So, he's a guy that wants you to know he's the big dog when he comes in the room. So there's a little bit
Mark
of that.
doesn't like that. And he doesn't see Mark. And the problem with Mark and the Raiders is that I think he's overcoming it, but in a way. But Mark's history is not with African American men he's had to answer to. All right. It's always people that either his father or himself have lorded over. In other words, they're depending upon them for a paycheck, ostensibly money and resources. Okay.
Right, of course.
And Mark has had in the past the tendency to act like that. All right. And now, I hesitate because I was trying to actually think of examples where I was wrong, like in politics and everything, and I can't. Okay. I can't. And it's unfortunate. Now, here's the thing. Mark is fully aware of his shortcomings and fully aware of his need to stop being that guy. Whether or not he's going to stop being that guy this time, we'll see. All right. But I know he's had to do a lot of changes just to maintain control of his team. Just saying.
Sure. I want to make sure we don't ignore the Rams-Giants game, which once again, it looked first like the Rams were just going to run roughshod over the Giants. And the Giants and Tyrod Taylor pulled it together and made it, a real nip-tuck affair, staged a bit of a comeback. I mean, they go down, a touchdown, and then at one point they're down 14. They then score 10 points to make it, at halftime, it's 14-10. And then they sort of outplayed the Rams at points for the rest of that game. What stood out to me, besides the fact that, say what you want about this team, they played hard. They played hard from beginning to end. Kyron Williams, they largely contained him. Well, he had scored 3 touchdowns, but they didn't allow him to go for like 120, 130, 140 yards. He went for only 87 yards. Puka Nacua had, 2 rushes for 19 yards, and then they held him in check except for one big, long one, almost went for a touchdown. One big play. DeMarcus Robinson went for 92. Higbee went for 62, and Kupp, they really kept in check. We did have 1 touchdown for only 27 yards. What really stood out to me was how much that defense sort of stood up and fought, despite the fact that they're undermanned. Some of their best players, left either free agency or trades, etc. And they just managed to show that they even against I would say a well above average, maybe not great, but a well above average offense. They fought hard the whole way. And, Tyrod Taylor, worksman-like, pick a term, right? 27-41, 319, a touchdown, interception. And the interception was, looked like miscommunication. Tyrod rushed for 40 yards as well. Could have had more. I don't know if they're telling him almost no matter what not to pull it on some of those reads, because it was clear that he could have picked up 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10, 11, 12 yards on some of those, but he wasn't pulling it. There was one where Saquon scored in a short yard situation where he almost pulled it. Like it was almost like a little tug between the two of them, between You get it, I got it. You got it, I got it. But he hit one beautiful bomb to Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton, of course, speedster out of Auburn, a guy that sometimes disappears at points in the season, but he had one of his better games. Darren Waller emerged from the, he's been hurt a lot, but
Yeah.
He's a guy that, frankly, they should.
He's a China doll or what?
He's just a guy that, he gets hurt. I mean, he's fairly slender for the position. He's one of the more slender tight ends. Was a wide receiver in college, so he's a guy that became a tight end in the transition between college and pro. And so he's not as thickly built. I mean, there are other tight end, Daniel Bellinger, who had a decent game. The kid from second year guy from San Diego State looks like a tight end. Like he's darn near 250, 6'4" and 7/8 or something like that, about 251 pounds. And then Waller is a little lighter. He's he's about 246 or so, but he's very tall. He's over 6'6", right? So he's got a different kind of build. But he showed up. Jalen Hyatt, once again, he's a young guy. I'm not ready to give up on him, but I think he's going to end up being less than they thought he'd be. Wandale Robinson is going to become sort of their Cobb, their Randall Cobb, their little third down, hit him for 7 yards, slot receiver type, good after the catch, that kind of guy. But they don't have a wide receiver one anywhere, right? Slayton is better as a 2. Wandale Robinson's better as a 3 than he is as a 2. Bellinger is, of course, a second-string tight end, but a good second-string tight end. Jalen Hyatt's probably a wide receiver 4 or 5. The guy that I think could still improve is also Isaiah Hodgins. He had sort of a down day, but that's another guy that has some talent. But they don't have a single guy where it's like the guy you say, oh, my God, how do we stop him, right? So they need to go out and still get that guy. Their offensive line needs to be rebuilt. And Tyrod, negotiated fairly well. He gets the ball out quickly, and he's a good athlete, right? So he managed to not get whacked around as much as, say, Jones did. But they've got to do something about their offensive line situation. And they don't have a single, true mismatch pass rusher. Both of their sacks came from pursuit linebackers, right? So they have to blitz to get pressure. Bobby Okereke had a sack and a half. Isaiah Simmons had a sack. And so they're not getting anything from really, in terms of sacks, from their defensive ends and defensive tackles, right? So they're almost all of their pressure and sack production in this game came from guys that, except play linebacker. And that's not ideal, right? Former Steeler, Gunnar Olszewski, had a really good day. 108 yards, had a punt return touchdown in his 4 returns. Decent day from Mason Crosby. He missed potential game winner, last play of the game, or was it last play? It was late in the game. I can't remember if it was last play or not, but he was good on his others. Both the other 2 were both short, so he missed his one long one, which I think was 54. I think he missed, but he hit on the 2 shorter ones. But yeah, this is a team that just needs, other than running back, needs at least something at every place you can think of. They need pass rush. They need interior defensive line. They need offensive line everywhere. Every position on the offensive line needs to be upgraded. Tight end. They're probably solid at tight end. I like both Waller and Bellinger. So running back, they're pretty good. Tight end, no need to do anything else. But quarterback, every other position on offense that I didn't just name needs to be fixed, and literally every position on defense. They have 2 solid linebackers. That's probably the strength of their defense. But even then, there's room for upgrading. So that's a team that just needs a lot of help in terms of building the roster.
The Chicago Bears have officially scored the #1 pick in the NFL draft. What should they do?
Yep.
How much will trade down?
If it's me, it's trade down. Because they're not 1 player away. They're not 2 players away. They are multiple players away for being the team they want to be. And I don't think they need a quarterback.
No, that'll be stupid. No.
Right. So there's teams that are desperate to get Caleb Williams or desperate to get Drake May. Get one of those teams, the Patriots, whoever it is, and let them know, hey.
You know what? They need to build a monster defense. All right. They've got enough tools on offense. Maybe let's look at it another way. They take the #1 pick and they get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, I wouldn't
And
suggest
then they build
that.
defense, you know.
I wouldn't suggest that because you can get Marvin Harrison Jr. or someone maybe as good or better a little bit later. Malik Neighbors might be the same guy or better. So
Really?
have you
But
watched
cheaper?
Malik? Have you
But
watched? Well, cheaper if you draft him later, yes. But have you seen Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, I have, but I didn't come
Okay.
away with that impression. So I'm not, and not, let me say something, okay? Blanket. I am not sold on the idea of drafting a wide receiver number one. I never have been. All right.
And it
Okay,
hasn't worked
maybe
out yet.
down further, maybe like number 10 or something. But number one, number one to me is reserved for quarterback, offensive line, and that's pretty much it. You know.
If you can find a Julius Peppers, I'm taking Julius
Yeah,
Peppers first overall,
yeah.
and I
The
feel I'm
defensive
not
end.
even thinking about it.
The
But
defensive end or tackle. Remember Nottingham, right?
Indomitian, you mean?
Indomitian. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I should say Gesundheit.
yeah, and he certainly didn't go first overall, but he was a first rounder. So here's the thing I will
Those
say:
thought he was going to be that guy though for a bit. Remember that?
he's had a very nice career. He's a borderline Hall of Famer. But let's
Yeah.
get back to what I would do is there's essentially a auction, right? There are teams that are desperate for a quarterback. Your Falcons might be a team that says we've got to get Drake May or Caleb Williams. The Patriots might be a team that says we've got to get right. So there's going to be at least 3 or 4 teams that desperately want to move up. And you simply say, you know, we're open for business. We'll take this pick if nobody blows our doors off, but we're open for business. And so at that point, you're taking in offers and seeing who gives you the most. But that's what I would do. I would trade down. The teams that are coming up to get that pick are still bad teams. So, right, that's why you need a quarterback. So you're not moving way down. You're moving down a few picks, and you're getting, you know, a nice little haul in return. And I really like the picks that are available between, say, pick 4 and pick 12 in this draft class. That's where there's a lot of really good football players. That's where they can get some of the people that help them. Like one of the keys to Eberflus' defense, when he had guys like DeForest Buckner, when he had guys like who was the other really good interior player he had when he was with the Colts?
Armstead.
Well, Armstead didn't. No, Armstead stayed.
Yeah.
Armstead stayed. He stayed with the 49ers. It was Buckner that came.
Oh, Buckner came
Colts.
Right.
They had one other one that was really good too, but not as good as Buckner, but good. But I'll come to me later. But the point is that he needs that guy, right?
Yeah.
When they lost Akeem Hicks, and when Tommy from Oklahoma got hurt and was never quite the same guy again. When Tommy Harris got hurt, they lost that great. I mean, Hicks, they got from the Saints, and he filled the gap that was supposed to have been Tommy Harris. Tommy Harris was on his way to being a great 3 technique. But this defense doesn't work without that guy. One of the keys to this defense working well is having a great 3 tech. They don't have that guy right now. There's guys available in this draft class that are going to be terrific. I mean, obviously, Devontae Sweat, the guys everybody's sort of focusing on, really athletic, explosive, and has more than enough size to play that position at a high level. Even if you don't get him, there's other guys that you can get that, maybe you go, receiver early, and then you go with your later first round pick. Maybe you go with a guy like Sweat. Maybe you go after a pass rusher. So maybe you take Jared Verse, or maybe you take Braylon Trice. I mean, there's going to be some really good players had in the middle, even later parts of the first round. And so they can move all around this board. They've picked up, like I said, some extra picks, but I think they should pick up more picks. They should really attack this draft, particularly in the first. I would try to get, if possible, maybe 6 or so players in the first, 55 or so picks. So maybe I trade down twice even, right, with those 2 early ones, and just load up and just have, and then I can trade up again if I'm towards the end of the, we're getting towards the end of the first round. There's a player I love who's, say, fallen down. I can take one of those picks I just picked up, by moving down, throw him into the mix to trade back up to snag that player. That's the thing that people must realize is you're not always just accruing picks to make those picks. Sometimes you're accruing those picks to give you the ability to move around the board also, because it's like having currency. It gives you the ability. It's like having, another queen on your chessboard. It gives you more mobility. It gives you the ability to get to places that other teams can't get to snag that player you want.
All right. And so, folks, I'm going to have to close this. We've been on for 44 minutes, but I do have a question for you. What is your most memorable moment of the NFL season?
Oh, wow. Of this season so far? That's a great question.
This is not the last time we're going to do a live stream. It may be the last time we do it for this year.
For 2023, right. I know what you're saying.
But, we've got tomorrow. We got the week.
Yeah. Okay, so that's actually a fantastic question. I think I might go with, for this, college and pro or just pro?
NFL specifically.
NFL specifically. Okay, I was just checking. I might, given that parameter, go with that sort of. You know what? I'm going to go actually with when CJ Stroud sort of announced to the world that he was CJ Stroud, right? When you get to see this is a guy this is a guy that just he's special. There's no way to get around it. And he let us know pretty early on, right? Pretty early on in his career that we were in for one heck of a treat. And for me, the game that sort of cemented in my mind that we were looking at something truly special was that first game versus the Colts.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I said, okay, all right. Yep. He's got it. And then the one that answered any questions, for me, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm satisfied. Was that game first week of November versus the Buccaneers. And that's not a bad defense, right? The Buccaneers are not a bad defense.
No.
He lit them on fire, Zennie. He tormented them, right? Set franchise records. And they had Deshaun Watson, right? He set franchise records in that game. 5 touchdowns, 470 yards, just everything, right? Hit on almost over 71% of his passes. He was unstoppable in that game. Yep. And when you get to see a player announce to the world, yes, I'm going to be a star, right? That game, when Coleridge Bernard Stroud IV established that he is not just a good player, not just a very good player. At that point, I said, okay, well, all the other players I thought might have a shot at Rookie of the Year, well, it's been nice playing. Now the battle is for second. But that guy said, I am the offensive Rookie of the Year. No need to look any further. And he has, whenever healthy, he's gone out there and just played at a high level. Even his worst games are pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, it wasn't on the field, it was off the field. And it was Nashville very quietly moving through final approvals to build a new stadium for the Titans with a humongously large subsidy of $1.2 billion, $1.6 billion.
Well, hello there, Sailor. Yeah, okay.
And that, and all this talk of privatizing stadiums, which I'm really not behind anyway, that was a primal scream. And we read the documents. The state of Tennessee is behind it. The city of Nashville is behind it. There's no such thing as cost overruns because they've guaranteed they'll cover it, whatever it is.
Right.
And none of that was gigantic national news. Think about it.
Right. And part of that's because of the particular, if that happened with a New York team or a Los Angeles team, I mean,
you hear about it. Right.
Yeah.
But theoretically, you should hear about it from everybody. Anyway, folks, we'll be back. Live long and prosper. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe. And I close in the memory of the great Joseph Amandares, our great vlogger, and also David Compton, our great fan and occasional investor. All right, folks. Thanks. That ends the stream.